Hey, welcome everybody to Fireside Craps with old Johnny here. I got a really special guest with us today. I've teased this now for, a few weeks or so. I got my friend JB here, otherwise known as MyopiaMovie. And if you're like me, now maybe you're not like me, but when I put a video out on YouTube, on either the Pro Craps channel or Casino Gaming TV, one thing we do, we're all kind of, we're a little crazy. And we look at our feeds and we see, who's commenting and how many views we're getting. And there are a couple of people that I'm like, I really hope MyopiaMovie watched the video, but God, I hope it doesn't comment. Because every time I see an M, the white M in the purple thing there, my heart drops for a minute because I'm like, oh shit, what did I get wrong this time? Where's my math failing me? But it's educational, right? And so we've reached out, JB, and we've talked a little bit here privately. We've had a conversation or two on the phone. We've exchanged a ton of emails, and I've gotten to know you pretty well over the course of the last year or so. So hey, welcome to the show. I know we have lots and lots and lots to chat about.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. It's I was telling you in the pre-show we were. I think the first time I saw one of your videos was a Fireside Craps, a year and a half ago, whenever it was. So it's kind of neat to come full circle and actually be on one of these things. So happy to do it.
It's good, man. I'll tell you, the Fireside Craps thing, I lost a lot of steam with it. And I was telling Greg this when we did our last show. I started it over a year ago. We're talking like last November, right after the first Crapsathon, I started it because I was struggling with what do I do with the Pro Craps channel? Because I didn't even have Casino Gaming TV back then. It was just the Pro Craps channel. Yeah, and I thought, I'm trying to brand myself as like, how to play the game, quote unquote, how to play like a pro, quote unquote, and me going off with like opinions didn't seem like it fit the channel. Like I didn't want that to be like an everything channel. So I said, let me do a podcast because I love a podcast. Like I love walking my dog and listening to people talk about stuff, and that's why I did it. And almost immediately I started the Casino Gaming TV Coffee and Craps thing, and now I'm doing a live show every single day, and I couldn't find time for this. But this is a cool format.
I like it too. I even listened to, so I've watched / listened to every video you've ever made on either one of the channels, most of them more than once, because one of the things for the last 10 years of my life, when I go to sleep, I just put headphones in, listen to some kind of podcast. And this is just another thing that I kind of put in the rotation. So even when you're rolling out strategies and doing stuff that's more visual, half the time I'm still just kind of got it in my ears as just a way to kind of zone out and go to sleep. So I sort of enjoy the podcast methodology of it all. But
that's cool. And I say this like last time, it's got to be a non-visual thing. The podcasts are great. You can just I do the same thing. I zone out, but I zone out to Waylon. Yeah. I always joke, he's like my pillow buddy. Like I put him on and just like hear him roll and talk, sing about his 12s and his ace deuces. And
I get it.
It just puts me out, man, every time. It's fantastic. So what a world, right? How YouTube, like back when I started the channel, has completely changed. Like completely changed since then. We've gotten so many more channels and information out there. It's crazy. And for a guy like you, who I know, you're into the math, right? You have math in your life as part of your living. It's got to drive you a little bit nuts with all the things that are happening out there, right?
Sort of. Yeah. No, I think the thing that is really the thing that people probably don't fully understand until they talk to me for a bit, and maybe this avenue as we talk on this episode and maybe a few more down the line, people will have a better understanding of where I'm coming from. I really feel, and I don't know why this is, but I just sort of feel protective over the people that don't know yet. There's a lot of people out there. I love the game. I play more craps than anybody you've ever met. I promise you that. It's absurd how much I play. I've seen everything you can see, good and bad and ugly. And there's one of the things that really sort of hurts my heart, to be honest with you, is when I see people come to the game and not have think they have an understanding and not really have an understanding, and just get smacked in the face with a dose of reality that is not just bad, but they didn't realize was possible. And there's one of the things I really respect about everything that you're doing and the channel and the way you approach this is, yes, you may not know 100% of everything that there is out there, but you have an inquisitive mind. And when someone can show you objectively, maybe something that you might have had wrong, you sort of go, wait, okay, now I understand. And I think that's awesome. I kind of feel there's too many people out there, and as the number of channels grows, you're going to get some of all different types. There's just too many people out there with a mentality of can't lose type strategy crafting and stuff, and it's just not true. And I just want people to understand. Once you understand, I mean, I really don't care. I'm very libertarian about these sort of things. Just do whatever you want to with your money. Play how you want to play. None of it bothers me. But what hurts, I think, a little too much is when I see somebody show up at the casino and you can tell they've read a book or watched a strategy video or whatever, and they've got this idea of I'm just going to come in, I'm going to win my X, and I'm going to leave. And they are blown away and shocked when it doesn't happen. It's like, I wish someone could be there and just go, look, let me help you understand the full reality of it all, and then make your own informed decisions. You know, I don't really see myself in the same light as I think probably a lot of people do. But
yeah, I think the thing is that you come off sometimes in comments like, oh, math guy knows it all kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But in talking to you, that's not the case. And I think the thing you're hitting on here, which is super relevant, and I think the most eye-opening thing to me, and when I first started playing craps, I was young. I was like 23 years old. I didn't really put two and two together. But most other games, craps and roulette, I think, are unique across the casino, and sports betting, but that's a whole different topic, I think. Craps and roulette, you can put many bets out there. Like, blackjack, it's you put your money out there, and even if you're a complete novice, you put your money out there, you can give them the puppy dog look and they'll tell you what to do, and you either win or you lose. It's like a slot machine with live people. Baccarat, same thing, right? Pie Gals, all those games. You put your one bet out, and hopefully that bet wins, and they tell you what happens. Craps, it's not, well, you can play pass line and just kind of ignore the rest of the world, but you can put like a whole bunch of money on many different bets and lose for lots of reasons and win for lots of reasons. And all of a sudden, like you said, the worst thing in the world, you go out there and you win a bunch of money and don't know why. Like most people's first experience is that. But you could get whacked so hard in this game and not know why. And like, well, what the hell happened? But yeah, it's more than one bet. It isn't just putting $5 out there and hoping you get a blackjack. It's putting $66 out there, and somebody rolls the dice and they take all your money. It's like watching Chevy Chase in Vegas Vacation. Like, guess what number is behind my back kind of a thing.
And just shaking the head no and taking your money from me. No, I totally get it. No, I mean, I think.
By the way, easily the best scene in any movie of all time.
I love it. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
See what number I'm thinking of.
I think one of the things that I find very perversely beautiful about the game of craps is that how much of the game is designed to give you the false impression that you can do something with it, that you can outthink the table or time this or strategize that. Again, I don't have the theme of all of our talks will be, I don't begrudge anybody playing a certain way, doing a strategy, switching around. Do whatever you want. I just want people to fully understand what they are and aren't avoiding, strategizing against. It's this, you're playing against, it's not literally a machine, but it's like in the abstract sense, this machinery that doesn't care what you're doing. It has no feelings. It's like, I've joked with you in the past about, a lot of people, you would be one of them. I sort of envision like an offensive coordinator with like a play calling sheet in front of you and kind of looking at the table and going, let's try and run this strategy against this table. And the table is looking at you going, I'm a random number generator, man. I don't have any idea. I'm not strategizing against you. Like when this really, we won't do this now, but if you get deeper into like the mathematics of all of this stuff, like if you wanted to play competitive rock, paper, scissors against somebody, the optimal strategy is just to randomize between rock, paper, and scissors. No one can find a way to systematically beat you. And so that the table is just 1/3 rock, 1/3 paper, 1/3 scissors. And you're over there going, well, I've seen 2 scissors. Let me play paper neck. Like it's all sort of, well, it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, true. Unless you, and we could talk about this too at some point, unless you're buying into the idea of dice control or dice influence on any level. Because then what you're saying is, sure, competitive rock, paper, scissors, but I can tease out an extra 2 rocks every 100 rolls, and I can hide a scissors 3 times out of every 100 trials. Then you're playing, then you are the OC. Then you got your
Yes.
play sheet out and saying, well,
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that right now I'm feeling it. My hands are warm. They're dry. Table's good condition. I can hide that scissors for a minute.
And if
you can do it,
absolutely. Then you're not playing a random number generator anymore. If you can do that, I will pay for you to fly to the Midwest where I live, and I get a semi-private table to myself 4 days a week, and I will play and you can sit there and shoot with an empty and half of the table will be completely empty. There'll be nothing impeding you. If you could do that, trust me. You can come down here and shoot for me, and we will split the money that we win. I got no qualms about that. I don't actually think it is repeatably possible, but trust me, I wish it were, because the way I play would be insanely lucrative.
Well, let's jump into that. Let's talk about how you play. Then I do want to circle back and talk about DI a little bit. Let's talk about how you play, because I think coming off as the math guy, right? You don't play pass line max odds math guy style. Like that's what all the books say you ought to do. And I was shocked by them when we first started talking. I'm like, and I'm expecting you every time I do a video to come up, and crawl up my rear end and tell me, stop trying to teach people how to press, blah blah blah. You got to play the pass and odds. Like you don't play that way. How do you play? What's your walk up? What's your walk up strategy?
So the only thing that changes with me is the starting level, and the starting level of my bets has no pattern. There's no system. There's no, if I lose, I go up or down or anything like that. It's just based on how I feel. And usually if I'm in a super bad mood or a super good mood, my bets are higher because I'm either just annoyed with it all or it's been going well. I will do somewhere between 500 inside. So like 100 on the 5 and 9, 150 on the 6 and 8 place bets. That is kind of the base level. I have done as high as 4,400 inside as a starting point. That is rare. As a
jump off point.
As a starting point, yeah. That is rare, admittedly.
Is that going on a tilt, or is that because you want
to mostly.
Okay.
A little, it's one of two extremes. It's either pure tilt annoyance or it's been insanely good and now I'm just going to start there. The probably the most common is 1,200, 300 a number inside. And I start to press pretty quick. From the base level, I press right away. And I don't really stop. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't stop pressing, because it's not like I literally full press every single time, every single roll until the table maximum. Built into there is, like, for example, the first time a 5 rolls, if I've got 300 on it, I go to 500. So I collect 220.
Yep.
The second time it rolls, I put 200 on the 4 because I don't have a 4 to start with. So I collect 500 and I put 200 on the 4. So like little things like that are there's always money being pressed somewhere on the table, but it's not just 300, 600, 1,200, 2,400, and so on and so forth. Right. But I am playing for the 1 or 2 times a week where there's a 35 to 45 roll hand or whatever, and I'm trying to make a significant amount of money. And I know going in that the substantial majority of hands, I'm going to collect little to nothing. I mean, that's just part of it. And so I always laugh at I'm sure, and even the people who in the sort of comment section who are likely to be my most vocal advocates and agree with me the most would probably now roll their eyes at hearing that. That's how I play. And that's fine. There is a slightly more complicated version of the mathematics that we can worry about sometime down the line if people are interested, that has led me to play that way. But yeah, I don't know. I like the thing one of the things I've always wanted to say about the moniker, the archetype being sort of labeled as like the math guy. And I think that's fair. The way I would say it is, if you took a baseball and put it in your hand and then dropped it, do you believe it would hit the floor?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Or does that make you a physics guy?
No. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, I believe in the laws of probability. These things are immutable. Like, and so yes, and to that, if that is what it requires me, look, there are people in the world that don't believe gravity doesn't exist, right? And so, it sounds crazy to say, but it's true.
Well,
I'm a math guy as much as you're a physics guy in that sense. And you believe
Sure.
when you know these things to be true, like there's not much more to it than that. At least that's how I look at it.
Well, and I think the thing is, I labeled as a math guy means you know, understand, can execute math, and also play that way. I think that the example that you gave is interesting, the gravity thing. It'd be the equivalent of like saying, I understand the laws of gravity and I can teach them to like understand to the point where I could teach them and convey them to others. Yet I'm still thinking that I can walk outside and float. Right. That I can beat them. Right. Or you just embrace the fact that that's what's going to happen. Right. And I think there's this interesting thing with craps. And I think it's such a crazy game because every other game in the casino is purely random. We all had this belief that this is not, or that we can beat it somehow, or that there was a rhythm to it. And I think rhythm, you know me, I'm a rhythm teacher, right? I believe wholeheartedly that tables have rhythm. I don't know that you can predict the rhythm, but you can definitely jump in and start dancing a little bit with it.
Well, so yeah, I don't even disagree with, the thing I disagree is that the rhythm ever actually, even in retrospect, if we were to put what I wish we could do, like for example, because I literally watch all of your videos when you're doing your practice rolls at night and stuff like that. I don't often watch them live, but I've watched every one of them. I just enjoy it for whatever reason. I kind of pretend and play along in my head kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I wish that we could have a little flag that said every time you felt like, you know what, the rhythm is good, we just mark it. And then I could show you, I believe, after you're done with 10,000 rolls or whatever it is, that, okay, you got to choose when the rhythm, you don't have, you could, maybe one night you never say there's a good rhythm. That's fine. I'm not forcing you to say it.
Sure.
You tell me when the rhythm is good, and I'm going to look for the next 5 or 10 or the next X number of rolls. And I feel very strongly that if I showed you that distribution, you wouldn't be able to tell it apart from the others. And that's what I really believe. But at the same time, I play the way I play, and I play mostly by myself for the speed of the game, for the rhythm of the shooting. I don't like to wait for it. Drives me. I will not play Friday night. I will not play on New Year's Eve. I cannot stand, even though it would work better in terms of like, you know, I'm doing myself a disservice in terms of like being rated by, because I'm throwing the dice every 5 seconds or whatever. Sure. Sometimes, you know, I'm getting in so I might play 6 hours, 7 hours a day by myself. That's the equivalent of 5 Friday nights in a row of 5 hours a piece or whatever for a lot of people. But I still get annoyed when the rhythm gets broken up or somebody's staring behind me or like stops at the table or, you know, like I don't believe it matters, but I still, for me, it's more like all of this is a way to craft endorphin release, right? Our reward system in our brain is enjoying. And for me, I got so used to being able to get resolution of the dice every 15 seconds or less, having to stop and do one roll every 2 minutes. It literally it's no fun to me anymore. So I believe in those types of things, or I believe in like, I enjoy the game more. You know, sometimes it feels, it feels like we've got a good one going and let's just like keep the flow kind of thing. Sure. But, you know, I mean, my favorite thing is like the dealer, like sometimes when they pass the dice, they just get stuck, they get caught up and they fall over and they show a 7 or whatever. And even the dealers are like, they try and take the dice back. I'm like, just quit it. Just hand me the dice and I'll throw in whatever shows up. And it happened today and it was a 10. And I go, every time you do that, it's a 10. You know, I just like make these things up that it's not really, you know, it's just trying to get away. I try my best to get away from thinking like that. Cause I just think I think it's basically like believing you can float is probably the good example of it.
And rhythm is such a weird, and we've had this talk over email too. Rhythm's weird, right? I'm the same way when I'm throwing at the casino. And Ian, my friend, who plays with me all the time here in Washington, he and I have this conversation almost every time we play. Because I get the dice and I'm in my groove and I'm doing good. And then doesn't somebody do something stupid? And I'm not a big believer in superstition, but I am a believer in breaking the rhythm, like buying in late or arguing with the dealer about their pay, like whatever the payout was.
Yep.
And I had the dice and they had their hands down and I'm like, damn it, just get your hands off the table for a second. And now I'm out of it. Then I got to stop, regroup, do this with my hands and then it's always a 7. I know it's not always a 7, but for freaking hell, it feels like it's always a 7.
No, I feel the same. No, I do. I feel the same things.
Yeah.
I actually, I used to play in Louisiana years ago, and I used to, that was when I would be at a table often full of other people. You get to see all the same kind of people a bunch and stuff like that. But everybody had their things. And I ended up just making a little thing like on the notepad in my phone, just dice fell off the table, stick change, whatever, and just track the first roll after all of these obnoxious things.
Right.
Just for my own peace of mind and just to show people like it's a very well-known psychological thing. Like confirmation bias is real. Like
100%.
we see the things we want to see and we don't see the things we don't want to see. Like it's very explainable. Right. But I fall prey to it too. My least favorite thing in the world right now is hitting. So I bet the bonus for all, tall, and small, but only the all. I don't care about the sides. And my least favorite thing in the world is to hit the half of the bonus because I feel like I can get past that first roll after hitting half the bonus. I feel like I'm 7ing out 90% of the time. It's certainly not. And I know that it's not, but it sure feels like it. Like I just get to this. On the line. It feels like that. That's just one of these things that I know that I also know doesn't exist. So I'm not immune to feeling these things. I just separate. I'm able to, sometimes not in the moment perfectly, but I'm able to kind of just rise above it a little bit and just go, okay, that's just objectively not true. Empirically, we can count all of the times when X happens. And it's the next roll is a 7, 1/6 of the time. That's how it is, like. Well,
and I think it's timing. And I think confirmation bias, matter of fact, I taught a lecture on confirmation bias this morning, believe it or not. So your timing is perfect on that. But it happens. The thing is, I think there's a relationship between the confirmation bias happening and what happens. In other words, dice go off the table, it's going to be a 7, but if you're in the come out roll, your brain just puts that aside.
Yeah.
Who cares if it was 7? But if you've just had a 6 or 7 rolls and you're pressed up like you would be, right? You got 500 here and you're doing great, and you bounce one off the chip and it goes off the table, and that next one's a 7, you'll never forget that. Right. And that's
these things.
Your brain, the engrams, it just implants them in there.
Yes, it does. We anchor on these moments. We anchor because they're basically high leverage moments, right? It's the same for me. It's the same way. So there was a time a few weeks ago that I was in the middle of a very, very good roll. And for me, that might mean several $1,000s on every number all the way across, right? And some, goofball comes up to the other side of the table where there's no dealer standing and stands there and starts to pull out, $120. And they say, well, you can play. It's not a table that I don't make it. It's not my table. I set the table limits a little higher to try and cut the volume down. And this place has agreed to do that for me on sort of low, I can't do that on Friday night or whatever, but they'll do it for me on Tuesday afternoon. And I appreciate that. And so we're like, just come over here and play. And they say, just to let you know, it's a $50 table. And they stand and they go 15. He's like, no, 50. There's a sign right here. And we kind of point at it. And the whole time I was like, can you just leave me a play if you want to play? That's fine. I don't care. But leave me alone. Can you just stop coming up in the middle of all this? I've got $20,000 on the table right now.
Jesus.
Can you just leave me alone? And of course, like, you forget the fact that how lucky you were nobody wants to sort of acknowledge how lucky you were to get to that point. Obviously that was a roll that was, maybe 1 in 100 or so.
Sure.
So it's very, very, I'm already in a very lucky part, but when I've never turned a bet off in my life. But man alive, there've been a dozen times when I had to fight. I won't let myself believe in any of that. And it's like, if I wouldn't turn the bet off without the guy there, why would I do it now that he's there? Because he's not touching the dice. It's a little bit annoying that people can't read signs, but whatever.
That rhythm. So, what's funny, and I should get Neil deGrasse Tyson on here one of these days to talk about this, but I know this is bullshit what I'm about to say, but I know that slot machines work. Like, slot machines work where they have an RNG running perpetually. There's always an RNG running billions and trillions of of calculations per second, right? And when you hit the button, it stops. That's your number.
Yep. Yep.
And I always had this like life is an RNG. Like I'm living in a wide open RNG, and if I'm throwing the dice every 15.3 seconds, I'm in the rhythm. I got my groove going. The minute something screws that up, like the RNG keeps going, and now I'm going to get that 7. I know that's not what happens, right? But it feels like
it feels like you were going to get something different. What it feels like, I think, is you were going to get a different outcome. You got the bad one, therefore you say to yourself 2 things. I got a bad outcome. Mm-hmm. Something changed, which meant the thing was going to be different. Different than bad is good. I was going to get a good one, which may or may not be true, but it is. I get it. I really, I sympathize because I do the same thing. It drives me absolutely up the wall when people stop, like they stop the flow of whatever's going on or whatever. Yeah. But the best roll I ever had in my entire life, we had to wait like about 12 minutes because I broke the table. They didn't have money to pay my current bet that had just won. And so, and we made it, I think, 5 rolls after that, of all the times in the world. Yeah. And I had a significant amount of money on the table when they got the fill. And it wasn't even that big of a fill, honestly. They could not have afforded, another 10 rolls. They could have, they would have had to get a second fill. But of all the times in the world that I had to go, okay, just, you talk about breaking rhythm. Like I'm in the middle of, I was probably 50 roll. I don't know how many, I don't really track these things, but it's probably 50 rolls or whatever. And I'm at table max on several numbers and like 2-way max, put bets and place bets. And I'm like, I don't really stop. Right. And this is, I have like, it's just me, but I've got like eight people's racks full of chips. It's curving around the table. Like they literally couldn't pay. I had $1,000 hard 6. They couldn't pay. They didn't have enough money to pay. And for me to go, okay, that was like the hardest test of it all to go, okay, none of that matters. This is just the next roll. We're just in the middle of the roll. I don't know what the point, and we made it through, that's a time when I'm sure if it had been a 7 out on the first roll after waiting for 12 minutes, I would have been so angry with it. But there really wasn't anything that could be done in that time. But there was a big part of me that's like, why don't you just like come down to only 2,000 a number or what, it worked out to be to where we did get, I think, 5 rolls after that. So it was, as good as a perfectly normal outcome or whatever. But you talk about high leverage spot. I mean, those are the things that will stick in your mind forever.
That long of a wait. Well, and the thing is, like I said, if these statements are both ludicrous, right? One is my RNG statement, right? I feel like your personal RNG is going and you're going to get the different outcome, which I know is wrong. The other side of that, though, and coming back, let's wind back a little bit. If you think you can throw the dice with any kind of leverage, any kind of control at all, like I think I kind of can, that long of a wait takes me out of muscle memory. Like you get into a groove where you got it, and you wait 11 minutes. Now you don't have it anymore. So I have gotten superstitious in that regard and I've done this. I've like set the dice and, somebody does the reach in thing, or I've dropped them. I've like gotten ready to throw and I'm like, oh shit, I drop them. And I wipe my hands off. I say, turn my bets off, grab the dice again, and I get 1 throw. And then I come back in, make sure I'm still okay, which I know is stupid because I wasted a 5 and then I 7 out, and I realized that it's not smart, but from a standpoint, I would feel like you got it, right? Does that make sense?
Look, I'm somebody when I was younger, I played several sports at a reasonably high level. I played golf, as more than a hobby. I truly, truly understand muscle memory, repetitive action, what it takes to get to be as precise as you need to be. I'm somebody who has, last year, I shoot in the high 60s pretty regularly. Golf is not just it is fun, but it's not just a fun thing for me. Yeah. I really, really, really understand what that means, getting in the zone and being locked in and stuff like that. I just, I guess I've just seen if it is possible to do something like that. I guess I would have by sheer chance, I would have run into somebody that could do it by now. And I haven't. And I've actually played at the same table with more than one. I don't want to mention it because I'm not trying to denigrate people, but more than one person who, if I said the name, that people would know. Everybody listening to this would know who I'm talking about. More than one person like that. And I know that, and I don't actually think they're worse than random. Don't get me wrong. There's no such thing really. But I've never seen someone who, is a quote unquote influencer be even average. And so it's hard for me. Like, again, I don't chalk it up. I don't think that they're worse or anything like that. I'm just like, and I don't mind if people, as long as people aren't taking, 40 seconds to set the dice, I don't really care what you do because I don't think it matters. But the number of times that, like, I had a person, so I was on a trip, I was playing craps in another country here about maybe a couple weeks ago anyway. And, and there's this old man, he comes up to me and I'm betting, more than the rest of the table combined or whatever. And I don't care. I stand at stick left or right one because I like to be first in line in terms of when we're going around the table paying the bets. That's the only, I'll even pass the dice. I shoot the dice by myself so much. I'm happy to let other people shoot plenty. I don't care. I wish we could just, as long as it's going to go quickly. But this guy, he just comes up. There's 8 spots at the table open basically. And he's like, can I have this spot? I really only want to shoot from here. And I'm like, are you serious, man? And he goes, yeah, this is, and I was like, so I'm going to be the bad guy if I say no here, which I think is crazy. And so I go, okay, fine. I said, so, but he goes, he goes, trust me, I'm going to make you some money. And I said, okay. And if you don't, are you going to like pay me back? And I'm saying it tongue in cheek. He goes, I absolutely said it to him. And he said, sure. When I wouldn't have held into that or whatever anyway. And so he gets up there. He has 2 hands. The first hand, he goes 7, 5, 7. So then we go around the table. Now he's got a chance to have warmed up or whatever. He's got a notebook out. He's logging everything. I mean, he's got every stereotype you can come up with, right? And the second time he goes 7, 7, 3, 7, 8, 7. And I'm like, okay, thanks, buddy. Yeah. Like you never ever hit, like you didn't hit a single number. And I know that's only 2 rolls and that doesn't mean anything. And that's
sure.
But like when you combine, I don't know, I just have this list. So it wasn't this guy, right? This particular person, but if I put all of these guys into the same archetype and if I kept records of these things, I'd probably be down, I don't even want to say how much it might be, on professional dice influence shooting the dice. Like, please just stop. Like the facade it's hard. Like I said, I would trust me. If you can pull this off or someone can pull this off, we will make an arrangement and I'll be happy to let you come shoot in the best conditions you could ever hope for. And I'll just sit over there and bet, shoot until you're tired and then stop, but
well, I don't know. I've played with a few guys that are really good and have done really well for me. So I've seen it. And again, you can chalk it up to they had a great day randomly or they're actually doing it. I've had great experiences. I've had some bad ones. And I'm the first to admit my own experience has been terrible sometimes. I'm sometimes really awful. And I've said this, and I think I said this on one of my practice shows when I was doing it at night. It's so different, and I think it's unrealistic, even what I'm doing out there in the garage, practicing. And I think I'm making some headway. I'm getting better. I feel good about things. But at the actual casino, you get the dice, and you got to warm up, right? Your first time is 4, 5, 6 rolls. It's garbage, especially for me, right? I'm just trying to feel it out. It's an hour and a half. I got to survive. I got to survive an hour and a half to get the dice back, and I'm not loaded, right? So if I buy in for $1,000, I got to make that last for all the other schleps out there. And again, me, I'm okay. You all suck except for me. So it's it's adult pass and a come bet. I'm waiting for my turn. Yeah. And in that hour and a half, whatever muscle memory I might have gained, it's gone. Yeah. I suck again.
Like I said, I mean, come to the Midwest, buddy. You can sit there and shoot with no. You can warm up. I mean, it's literally the setup. There's not another person at the other side of the table. There's not even a stack of chips and a dealer standing there. Nothing. Right. It says pristine. It's just like you shooting in your garage in terms of there's nothing on the other end of the table. You're the only shooter. You can get your rhythm or what, like, try, look, I wish it were true.
Like getting into it is for a shooter, you feel like we've talked about this, right? You feel like you're getting with it. And I think we talked about this once too, about like you said, tracking the throws where I'm in rhythm. I just want to track the throws where I felt like it was a good throw.
Me and too. I would give anything. I think
it's so.
I did it one time just because I don't know. I'm just a nerd with data and things like that. It's just my nature. I'm like, I do empirical research for a living, and so I'm into this kind of stuff. I enjoy looking at analyzing the pictures and the charts and all of that stuff. And I only did it for one video, but because you don't always say anything, but sometimes you throw, and before they stop, you say, "Yep, that was a good one," or that was terrible. And every once in a while, and I flagged them. Mm-hmm. And the punchline is I don't know that you'd feel any more confident about your ability to pick it out. Like, there were plenty of, that was a terrible roll that ended well. There were plenty of, that was a good throw that ended up in your case with, 5-4, which is a quote unquote bad outcome for what you're trying to do right now. Yeah. Right. In that setting. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I only did it for one video just because it was just my own little curiosity. Right. I wish we could too.
I do. And it's very subjective. It's like, okay, that felt
of course
bad.
It is.
But what you can say is, and again, I think that the metric I'm trying to get to is how many times can I pull off what I would call a perfect throw? Like, it's freaking hard. Golf is a great analogy. I think golf is the best analogy because it's so damn hard. And I was a 2 handicap through high school in my early 20s. So I get it. It's hard to master it. And the minute you step away from that game and you come back to it, you're a 15 handicap. Like, you don't just show up and get it. So to work the muscle memory to a point where you can repeatedly do a perfect drive, a perfect throw, I want to know, like I said, on the golf course now, 1 out of 5 drives is on the screws, right? On the craps table, I'm probably 1 out of 10 shots that I throw, I feel like is on the screws. Yeah. I'm maybe 1/10 of the time was where I go, oh, that was perfection.
Yeah.
So I guess part of it is it possible for me to throw a quote unquote perfect shot? A. B, of the
answer to that is yes. The answer to that
work.
As someone who very vehemently does not agree.
More than 1 out of 10, though. You know what I'm saying? More than 1 out of 10.
Yeah. Well,
for me as a human to physically do it 6, 7 out of 10 times, say perfect. Whoops. Perfect. If I can do that, then we say, of the quote unquote perfect ones, did it actually work? Because if I split the dice or if I throw them too hard, there was no control at all. You to throw that result away. If it became a 9, cool. We got lucky on that. Well, and I say it all the time, like happy accident,
Well, yeah, and that's fine, and of course, and even good throws can work out against you sometimes too. Like, I totally get it. What I wish the perfect, it's impossible, right? This is too much. If we were really if we were both trillionaires, right, and we could just do whatever we wanted to with our time and lives, and I mean, I don't know, I guess maybe none of this would be worth it at all if we were trillionaires, but you get my point. Abstract away from all of that.
Right.
Like, what I would love to do was just, what the perfect experiment is, we set up like 3 super high speed cameras at the end of the table from all different angles, right? Mm-hmm. You stand over there, you make the throw, you call out, you wait until you get the perfect one. I don't care. Like, you wait until you get the one. You can have a high standard. It's fine. I don't care if it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 30. It doesn't matter. And you go, that was it. You have to say so before they land to be fair with it. And you say, that one was it. Then we go, okay, let it. I don't even care. I don't even care what it comes up. If it comes up perfect or imperfect, then I'm going to go, okay, what do you think? You did it you did it like you thought it was going to work. And you said that was a really good throw. What is it that you think happened on the other end? And you'd say something like, my thing with your style of throwing was always, I assumed that you might have, the physics of it all would suggest you might have some hope to control the bottom one. Because if they both traveled together and landed on one another, you sort of suppress the bottom die into the table at its face, and it's less likely to move around very much. That was my thought.
Yeah, that's
It's
not
like,
what I'm
if
going for, though. Yeah.
well, I'd like to know what you think is going to happen, and then live we just go, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
That's what you think is going to happen. Let's look at the tape in super slow mo from 3 angles, because there was a guy 10 years ago. All his videos, all his I can't is like something high tower or something like that. He was a big active member on like the Wizard of Oz forums and stuff like that, and he was doing very similar to what you're doing with some hardcore code and some super slow mo. Like, he was doing same kind of thing you're doing, but with the slow mo too. And it was fun to watch. My favorite thing, he would invite people who were to like wanted to take it. He would like challenge people like, hey, can you make your 7 roll ratio less than X for this many throws, or more than X, or whatever it is. And some people would take him up on it. He would just film and he goes like, warm up if you need to. It's fine. Like, nobody's trying to make you just come in cold and be perfect. Sure. And they would do it. And I would love when they'd be like, oh, double pitched. They're like, okay, and let's look at the videotape. And that die is showing all 6 faces 8 times before it stops.
Yep.
You didn't double pitch anything here.
Yeah.
It's like, so that's
I did a very similar series. Do you remember when I did that? I broke down a couple of guys' videos that were like these expert guys, slow motion.
Yeah.
And even Ed Robinson sent me, he and I did an interview, and he sent me some of his videos of his own slow-mo. And he's like, look, man, he's like, every face is showing. I get it. He's like, it's all about, and I've said this too, it's all about the energy. It doesn't matter. I don't think the set does matter at some point, but what faces are showing when they're tumbling around is less important than how often they roll over after the final landing. That's what it's all about to me, because we know you're always halfway home, right? When die 1 lands, you're halfway home every single time.
Yeah, sure.
And to me, it's about, like, especially with the set that I'm throwing. I think this dice being stacked and the spin rate that I've got, what I hope to see, if I could get the $1 billion slow motion camera you're talking about, and I have seen this a couple times when I've tried slow motion, is that I skip them in, right? And they hit so hard. And Cashier's Cage gets mad at me for throwing too hard. But I think you need that gyroscopic energy coming off those dice. They got to hit hard enough to hit the diamonds and keep spinning, right?
Sure.
On that same plane.
There's like an angular momentum argument to be had here. Like, I totally understand what you.
And if I can keep them there, right, in that same horizontal spin after contact, when they hit the table, then you're hoping for just 1 or 2 rollovers. Like, you're just trying to control, like, how quick is it going still? You cannot control the faces that show, I don't think, with my toss at all. All I can hope to control is how much energy and how many times they flip after they hit. And I think the horizontal spin is a big assist in that. I think it helps.
Maybe.
Again, it's I think, I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things, so one of the before we had spoken or emailed or anything like that, there's been 6 or 8 sort of Mount Rushmore I say arguments, but I don't think that's a bad word. I mean, discussions that you and I have had, disagreements on things or whatever. And one of the originals was that you were basically, it was the same idea about, it started with this sort of energy thing. And you were kind of like, I think on one of these die, I mean, I'm going to paraphrase and I might misspeak a little bit, but I'm trying to just get the gist of it. That one of the die what if I could remove 3 of the faces off of it?
Yep.
And I was like, fine. First of all, I don't think you can do that, but I'll even grant you that it's possible. If you can do nothing with the other one, if it is randomly 1 through 6, it doesn't matter if you can, because what that means is, let's just pretend on the second die, you could perfectly control to where it was only show a 1, 2, or a 3. You could remove the 4, 5, and 6 off of the die of the second one. If you can do nothing with the first one, well, that just means that some of the time I'm going to never throw a 7, and some of the time I'm going to throw a 7 33% of the time. And it's going to turn out that half the time of 0 and half the time of 33 works out also to be 1 out of 6. You haven't done anything, right? Like that's just, there's no opinion there. That's just the reality that's just the facts of how the arithmetic works. And so it's like, unless you can remove faces off of both of them,
right,
then we might be onto something.
And that's what we're going for, right? So
that's why I told you to set it up. And I know I feel like I knew this was going to happen. I feel bad because the number of times you've had to explain to somebody else, yeah, no, I understand I'm throwing a bunch of sevens or whatever right now. The point is, it's not that the set doesn't matter. It's that we can't do any science on it if we keep changing the initial conditions.
Totally.
You're not allowed to go outside and see, like, take a picture and see how far you can see if you do it on only rainy days and then sunny days and then try and mix them up together, right? This has to be, you have to start them the point, and we'll get to there when you get to the end, is like, the point is, if you could show that you can control the number of any face to show up, well, then perfect. Then we'll just stack the fours on top of each other and bet inside numbers or whatever it is. Like, or it doesn't make any difference. Like, I mean, you talk about no one's going to be able to sharpshoot, right? But when dice influencers or controllers or whatever euphemism they use for themselves now, when they start moving the goalpost, when you hear them say that the set doesn't matter, well, that doesn't make any sense to me, because if you've got some ability to influence the final resolution,
I said that. Nobody else does. I've said that before, but I don't think anybody else.
Yours, for what the experiment you're doing, it doesn't matter. It's it's like you could just as easily do 2s and 5s versus 1s and 6s, and we just count those instead. It doesn't make any difference which one you start with.
What matters when you start, and I say this a lot, when you start with the 2s on top or the 5s on top or the 4s on top, it's the 7s are still in the same spot. Right. Yeah. Both die on primary. You're still got half your rolls are 7s. And that's what you were saying before. Like, if you controlled one, but not the other one, 50% of the time I'm looking at a 7 with some of these sets that I use. Do you ever see my black and white dice that I built? My other practice dice? You got to see these things.
I don't know that I have.
Oh, these are cool. Yeah, I'll show them to you. You can see them on camera. I made these dice they have black here too.
Okay, yeah.
They're black on one side, and they're like white on the other side. So all the sides are white.
I got you.
All the ends are black. So when I stack them, I stack the black side on top.
Yeah.
And how many times do I get a black? How many times do I get a white? Because that's all I care about. Can I control?
Well, that's all we're doing.
And that's all I'm doing with the 6s and 1s. I wish I could buy actual dice like this. Like, if you can, because it wouldn't matter. The set wouldn't matter to me in that regard.
It saved you the time of having to explain to people every video that no, I know the set. I know. I feel bad about how many times you have to do that explanation. It's like just.
And then my morning show, it's the same thing. When I do the weekly paycheck thing, I get a lot of advice for changing sets. Like, I can't. I'm logging rolls every time, and if it works, it works. And if I get more 7s, fine. Maybe
if it works, you'll be changing the die every time.
Every roll. Yeah. Well,
you'll go, I'm trying to hit a 9 now. Let me put 4s and 5s in the middle or whatever, right? I mean,
that's going to be your job, right? If we ever figure this out, because
if you can make the 1s and 6s show up more than they should, I will tell you how to set the initial conditions, and I'll buy your plane ticket down here. That's fine.
So let me ask you a question, because we'll probably cut off here in a little bit. But what does 3% mean? Because right now I'm doing that. I get more 1s and 6s about 3% of the time. I get 3% of the time I get one die to work and one die not to work, which is the perfect condition. There's no 7s. I'm there 3% of the time. Is that actionable, or is that still so small that it doesn't even matter? Like, what's the number that I have to get to, or that you would be like?
I could give you a more robust answer. I could give a more detailed answer with some time to work through exactly what that would mean. Anything matters a little, right? I mean, it's just
sure.
So it'd be like, what is a good way to put this? So it'd be approximately like say, I'm going to have a strategy where I just bet, the 35 black at the roulette wheel or whatever. But I get to take one of the numbers off the wheel. Something like that. So not nothing. In a game like roulette, that's not a 2.5% edge. Isn't, if for somehow you could do that, wouldn't be enough. You'd still be you'd be losing less.
Mm-hmm.
In craps, in certain betting strategies, you could get it to where, I mean, I don't know if that's enough. I need to think more thoroughly about this, so I don't want to give the wrong answer. But every little bit would help if it were real, right? So yeah, I mean, 2-3% is not nothing. If you could lock that in, I would prefer it. I would prefer you to be able to hit 3s and 4s slightly more often, because I like to bet inside numbers or whatever, right?
Sure.
Like, so every little bit helps, just, if the bleed is lower than it would otherwise be.
And I think that there it is. You just hit on the magical phrase. Because I think, honestly, the result of all this is not going to be me hitting more inside numbers to make a bunch of more money. I may find a better pocket, but I think the thing is going to be a smaller bleed. You may lose one.
Well, those are the same. So the way
you lose less often, right? Like, you don't get burned for your 640 across, and you don't get burned one. Like, we were talking about, like, betting across versus betting two numbers, right?
Right.
And betting across is an 80% win rate. It's a 0.83% house edge and all that stuff. If I can not lose that one extra time, and it's 83% or 84% instead of 80% win rate, that's enormous. That actually is that's a bleed of 650 or whatever it is. That's a lot. It's not like I'm winning more. Like, I'm not counting the 140 that I would win on a number as the reason why I did this. It's so that I can survive an extra roll. Or
yeah, I guess the way I look at I think the way I look at it is those are equivalent statements to me. Losing less and winning more are literally the same thing to me, because something we'll get into in a longer, more in-depth thing is, I think anyone who's thinking about this reasonably would agree that this game is negative expectation. Mm-hmm. You really, I have not yet, and there are other people that would, I think, back this up, that no one's yet see consistent proof that you could move this in the direction to where it's positive expectation. Like, you can be an advantage blackjack player. I believe personally that there is no such thing as an advantage craps player. Some people will argue that that's what they are, and that's fine. I don't really want to argue with people over it. Believe what you want to believe. So if we come at this from that standpoint, then making the thing be less negative expectation means, it can manifest in different ways. It can manifest as a more days where I win versus lose. It can manifest as less times I get, smacked on the come out or whatever. But I look at these things over, enormous scales, and those are the same thing, right? However, it may look different to different strategies along the way, but the thing we'll get into this another time, but we have to, yeah. Oh, I have a lot to say about this, because because one of the things, like the teaser for something we'll do a whole episode on, if you want to. I don't want to invite myself into your sphere, but one of the things that we really need to talk about is the strategy crafter's relationship to variance, because I don't know if I could. Well, I could show it to you in an objective way, and some people would probably resonate with, and some people it probably wouldn't. But when you are playing a game where you're behind the 8 ball, where you are always at a disadvantage, no matter what your strategy is, the only way that you can win is to have luck on your side.
Yep.
In the statistical sense, luck is a deviation from the norm, or the expected or average outcome. That's also, we would call that variance, to speak sort of loosely about it.
Right.
And so the only time you should ever be trying to devise a strategy that has a very, very small amount of variance is if you could somehow get the expectation in your favor. That's what the casino is doing. The casino is trying to get you, would love for you and everyone else to just bet offsetting with one another.
Yeah.
Because from their perspective, then they just sort of get to take the toll for letting you all play. And I'll take your money from you because you lost, and I'll take a little piece off the top and give what's left over to this guy on this table. The casino doesn't care wins.
Isn't that kind of why they teach at the casinos and all the books that they try and sell, that the whole pass line with odds things is that's what it is. It's a low variance play that they can bank on that. I think variance is the secret to winning. You have to.
It's the only. It's literally. It's not even. This is a thing that I would argue very, very strongly that this is not an opinion. You cannot win without variance in a game where you're expected to lose. In all of these casino games, you're expected to lose. And if you're an advantage blackjack player, someone who can literally card count and play perfect strategy and have large bet spreads and things like that, things are very real. And let's just say, for the sake of illustration, that the casino is not backing you off or whatever. The only reason you lose is because of variance. You're making a positive expected value play every time you make a bet, and you're playing in a way that if we could just go, let's not even do it. Let's calculate the average outcome and just pay out the average outcome. Well, in a game like Advantage Blackjack, you would be receiving the money. In a game like craps, roulette, or baccarat, or any of these other games, if we just said, well, the expected value is minus 1% or whatever, so let's not play. Let's just take over 1%. That's what would happen. So if you want to do better than that, you have to get lucky. You have to experience positive variance, and so we'll dig into that really deep at some point if you like.
I want to get some visuals of that at some point, because
I would love to draw. I've literally got them drawn, or I've got sugar cubes ready to go. Like, it's
one of these days we'll have to do that on the show, because I want to see
absolutely.
I want to see the mathematical proof behind it, but I know we all know it, right? And variance is constant. I think that's another thing too. You can look at the game and the 10,000 rolls you'll see in your entire life, or whatever the number of rolls you'll see in your life, and you'll be right at.
I think I'm at like 200,000 already, but yeah,
whatever the number is, right? You'll be at the curve for sure. But in a session, you'll never see 36 perfect rolls.
Of course,
once in a billion you'll see that.
Well, yeah, sure.
You're always in a variant, and I think one thing I'm going to have to pick your brain on, and again, this is great stuff for future episodes, is and you brought up the idea of persona or archetypes earlier. The John, the daily paycheck guy, versus the home run hitter that is JB, versus the party, let's go out and have fun for a night with our friends player, right? The pure recreational person, right? Those, and we can take out the degenerates, like I'm coming in here with my paycheck, trying to make rent with my craps play.
Yep.
The three main archetypes, they experience that variance in a whole different way. They experience it the same, but they profit from it or not in different ways. And I think that the paycheck player just has a whole different view of the world, right? And in 27 good variants, they're going to make $500, and in 3 bad variants, they're going to lose $5K, right? Versus the home run hitter, who 3 times is going to turn 5,000 into 50, and 27 times turns 5,000 into 0.
Correct.
Like, the way that they embrace and attack the variant is so interesting to me. And I think that's where your statistical, like your life's work is going to help bring some of that down to earth for me and
you really, well, I appreciate, I appreciate the intuition that you have for it, because one of the reasons I get a little bit abrupt with the way that I comment on things or engage with people is because I believe that there are some people, and I'll admit that it's probably still the minority. I think some people don't know, and they don't have any sort of nefarious intentions behind it. But there are a lot of people who will put out strategies and systems, and especially the people that sell them to you. They are designed to prey on the mentality that that this idea that a very small chance of a very large loss is something that most people don't have the ability to reconcile in their heads. Mm-hmm. If you gave 100 people a strategy that was going to win 99% of the time and lose 1% of the time, and then you gave a different 100 people a strategy that was going to lose a small amount of money 99% of the time and win a decent amount of money 1% of the time, even if you could rig the system so that these strategies on average both won and lost the same total amongst the groups, you have 99 satisfied customers in one scenario and only 1 satisfied customer in the other. And I believe that certain people do this on purpose. I believe some people don't understand what they're doing, but you're still sort of preying on the average person's lack of numeracy, I guess is the word I would use. Like, and it's nobody's fault. I don't ever begrudge people. Look, I think most happy lives are lived without having to worry about the knowledge of the detailed statistics and this sort of thing. But this idea of, I think too many of these, and they have different, a lot of them are martingales, a lot of them are martingales in disguise. They can have up as you lose or euphemistic terminology around them, that what they are things that have, the bad outcome is very, very rare and so large that if you were to kind of draw the little distribution chart like you do every morning or every time with your, here's my rolls 2 through 12, and here's what it draws a nice little bell curve. We can draw a distribution just like that for these strategies, but the very bad outcomes are so far away that if you kind of squint and look a little bit too close at it, you can't see them. And the average person, because they can't see them and they don't experience them very often, thinks they're not there. And so when they do show up, it's very catastrophic, not only for their bankroll, but for their mentality. And I feel very strongly about sort of fighting against that kind of stuff. But when we get to the time to draw the pictures and show you, I'll show you exactly what I mean, because all of the strategy crafting, I think it's sort of fun. I don't do it myself, but like, I think people think I don't want strategies to exist or that I think strategy crafting is stupid. I don't think any of it is. I think we're all sort of the same level of stupid. Like, we all play this game and we're all bleeding to death very slowly. And some of us bleed to death a little faster than others, because if you make a bunch of hot bets or you do that, like, there are certain ways that we can bleed faster than others, but we're all sort of equal levels of stupid. And I mean that sort of tongue in cheek, right?
Sure.
We're just having fun like that. At least that's supposed to be what it is. Hopefully if it stops being fun, maybe that's a different discussion. But like, when we try and introduce these things, like, I mean, I've seen videos on YouTube where people are ask some of these folks, like, okay, how much money do I need if I want to buy a house, with my winnings? It's like, oh, well, you just need a bankroll of 30 grand. No, that's not how this works. You're going to lose. If you play long enough, you are guaranteed to lose it. Now, anybody can get lucky, right? And many people can get lucky for longer than you might think, but that experiencing only the, being able to dodge the bad outcome in a martingale or up as you lose or whatever kind of strategy you want to do, if you dodge that for a long time, I think that's almost worse, because when it does happen to you, you'll have a false sense of understanding how lucky or unlucky you've been going forward. And I've told you a story before, I'll save it for another time, about the guy who could do the 11-step martingale and he lost it twice in a row.
Jeez.
It's a real thing that can now is that really, really unlikely? Of course it is. But that guy, well, first of all, my guess, I never saw him again after that. My guess is he wasn't bankrolled to withstand 2 bankrolls. And the guy lost $40,000 in starting off with a $5 field bet. That's literally where it started, 5 in the field.
Insanity.
Right?
My God. Yeah.
And he lost it twice. So he lost $40,000. Even if he never, so he'd have to go something, I think I worked it out one time. He'd have to go, 6 months of playing, 4 or 5 hours a day and if the thing that just happened to him twice in a row never happened in that period of time, then he'd be back. He wouldn't be winning anything. He'd just recoup his losses. Right. And that's, I just don't think people fully understand that. I think I could pictorially show that someday, in a way that is more digestible than fancy math, but
that'd be good.
I hope so anyway.
Well, I think it's, you got to see it. You got to see it. I'm lucky enough that I can call myself a lifetime winner, right? Because I've never had the bankroll to go completely tits up.
Yeah.
Like I've never gone busto. I've lost a few $100 here and there. I've won big enough times to cover my small losses, because I've always been, $1,000 or sub $1,000 player until just a few years ago. So
the analogy, I agree. So I don't dispute that. Let me be clear.
It's coming. Well, I know it's coming someday, right? There's no question I'm going to get burned here at some point. But
in the long term, it's sort of immutably true that it will come. But this is the way I would analogize that. So imagine getting a stadium full of people to pair off against one another and flip a coin, heads or tails. All the winners stand up, the losers sit down, and then you pair up again, so on and so on and so on. You could take, the entire Seattle Seahawks football stadium full of people, and after about 15 or 20 or whatever it is, flips, you'd be down to one person who still hadn't lost a coin flip. That person's not good at coin flipping, right? That person's probably going to start to believe that they're good at it, right? But even if it's literally a computerized random thing and whatever, that person has no coin flipping skill. Just the nature of this game, if enough people play enough different ways and so on and so forth, someone is going to, if we cover all of the possible outcomes, well, some of those outcomes are, I've lost, 5 sessions in 150. There are people out there that are like that. What I don't like is when those people try and either capitalize on that by selling systems to people, right, or they believe they're immune to losses, or like that kind of stuff is just I don't care what one person thinks. I care about the person who silently watches your videos or someone else's videos and doesn't know any better. They're not schooled in this stuff, and they think, you get a room full of people, you put 100 people in a room and tell them that one of you is going to be the lucky one. 25 of them are going to believe that they're the lucky one, right? Like, that's just how it works, right? And so I don't want there to be 25 people, out of 100 who watch a video silently and don't know any better and show up at the craps table and go, well, I saw a guy do this once. He had some kind of like lay the 5 and across bets and hit one hit and come to, whatever, one of these sort of hybrid-y kind of things. Sure. And the guy just watched some guy threw like 4 5s in a row or whatever it was, the perfect storm for this guy. And he lost all the money so fast. It was no more than a minute. And you could tell from his face that was not only maybe money he couldn't afford to lose, but also he had no idea that was possible in his mind. And whether he was told it was impossible or not, I have no idea, but you could tell he learned this kind of thing, and like, there you go. Now it broke me. And he probably is not capitalized. It didn't seem like at the time the way he was acting was not sort of capitalized to keep trying or wait for something better to come along or dig out of the hole or whatever. And so I don't know why I feel protective of people in that way, but I do. Well, so that's kind of the spirit of it all.
You're clearly 100% right there. And I honestly, mea culpa here, I got to do a better job. Honestly, when I roll stuff out on my tables in the paycheck show and when I roll them out here, of starting every video by saying this strategy will ultimately lose, because it's true.
Well, I think I want to give you credit, though. I really do.
Okay.
I want. Yeah, exactly. Right. All I do is like, I'm the guy who's like, but every time I type anything, but I want to give you credit for you are not selling, not literally, but you're not like saying, hey guys, this is what you should be doing, or this is the way to make it work. I think you are as objective as anybody as I've seen, which is why I respect what you do. And I'm appreciative, and I like to start the dialogue with you. I think the thing that is so funny, and this doesn't make for great content, right? Like, I think it's great. I enjoy the morning rollouts and stuff like that. It doesn't make the real way to do it, as you know, is to go, okay, we've seen 5 iterations, which is better than 1. Right. But 5 iterations of anything is still really, really small. It's not enough. That doesn't fill out the distribution of possible outcomes. The only way to do that is to do that strategy 1,000 times or 5,000 times. And obviously that's not going to happen in person like that. So you could simulate all this stuff and win craps, but it doesn't make for great content, because you could just go, because the reality, and this is something that I still argue with people in the comment section of your videos over this stuff. Even though every single strategy you and anyone else has ever done, you program that thing in win craps and let it run, all of them are losers. There's not one that comes out ahead in the long run. People still believe. They don't believe. They'll come up, well, you can't do it in computer because random number generators are faulty or whatever. And,
totally, yeah. That's
fine. I mean, look, I've yet to meet somebody that says that could tell me, because let's talk about random number generation and why you think it's not. I'm happy to engage in that level, because RNGs are not perfect, and maybe the win craps one is flawed in some way. I was like, show me why you think it's flawed. I'm willing to entertain that. but they don't actually have a reason. That's just an easy thing to throw out there to go, you can't do that on win craps. Like, I know better because I've done this, 100 times and whatever. It's just, it doesn't make for great content to go at the end of, I imagine at the end of every payday or paycheck Friday, you go, and let's look at the win craps. Oh, look, it lost, 1.8%.
Yeah.
It looks like, oh, look at this one. It also lost 1.8%. This one lost whatever the weighted average house edge is going to be somewhere in like the 1 to 4% range for every one of them. And so that's not, I understand. I don't envy the difficulty of trying to make these things continue to be interesting. And I appreciate how you do it. I couldn't do it myself. I would go mad because I was like, no matter how, it's like, to me, it's sort of, I think it's beautiful in like a very sort of ephemeral way, how regardless of the different machinations that you could come up with, I've got 18 strategies and all of them are wildly different than one another. And you run a horse race with all of them and they all just wind up tied for last. It's like, or first, however you want to look at it. But
how it happens, yeah.
And so it's like, I think that's what's so cool about, I think that's sort of fascinating about the game, when someone doesn't want to see that, they're not going to respond.
There's a fun factor to it too. Like, to me, the daily paycheck thing, there's a fun factor to that where I always say like how bad did I sweat today? Like today I ran a Wayland strategy, right? I didn't sweat at all. I've worked that strategy hundreds of times and I've never sweated once. I'm gonna get burned at some point, but it's like that one. I'm like, okay, this is never had a problem. Last week's strategy never had a problem. Some weeks I'm like, shit, I go from 5,000 to 500 in like no time. Like, oh my god, that was super volatile. That's the thing that's fun about it. I think one thing, and I will get to this at some point, is we're going to have about 30,000 rolls. By the time I get done with my practice rolls, I've got about 5,000 or 6,000 rolls captured from the coffee and crap shows, and I'll have about 10,000 rolls from the daily paycheck, all rolled into one giant roll file for win craps. That'll be 30,000 rolls, roughly 5,000 or 6,000 points being set, or shooters, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
That will be good as the non-RNG, actual John rolled them on camera for you, rolls to run strategies against.
When you do that, just for me, when you do that, do it with the win craps, RNG, and yours, and then don't tell anybody and put them side by side and ask people if they can tell them apart. I'm willing to bet that no one's going to be able to tell them apart.
Can I tell you a secret? And then I'll let you go. This is pretty funny. I actually did this. I did this comparison today, actually, for the show, where I did 160 across and I did a $30 6 and 8, right? One hit and down just to see what would happen, right? I ran it in win craps and I have 3 roll files. One, which is all the rolls I've done so far. So it's like 9,000 rolls or something like that. I ran it against that and all of them, they're doing this. And then all of a sudden they start shitting themselves and it goes to 0 like it always does. And I'm like, man, that's weird, because they were actually, I was like watching the graph. I'm going, these aren't that bad. It's almost like the 0.083 house edge is kind of doing its thing. It's kind of treading water. Then it just goes into the toilet, Well, then I realized that I have my controlled shooting, my garage shooting, as the first 3,000 rolls in that file. And the second, 6,000 rolls is all the bullshit from the morning show. Yeah. That's where it tails off. And I'm like, I got to show him this. I got to get JB on the phone and look, my good throws actually made me money and my shitty throws lost me money. I know it's confirmation bias, but it cracked me up when I saw that. I am going to split that out and do 2 separate runs because I think you're right. I got to see the I'm trying, the I don't care rolls, and the RNG, the pure RNG rolls, and really see
computer, I mean, it would just
how that split is, because it'll be fascinating. This is the kind of stuff that I'm a computer guy, that I can nerd out on that crap forever. I could do show after show on that stuff. People would all fall asleep. I'd have to do it like a cocktails and crap, so they can all drink while I'm doing it. But to me, it's fun to see that kind of how the weighted averages work out like that. It's very cool. So anyway, we've been on this call for an hour and a half. I think it's probably time.
I know. I could talk for a million years. I appreciate. I'll let you.
Oh, dude, this is great. I could do this with you all day long. We'll do a couple more. I might actually split this into 2 episodes. We'll see. But we could do this all day. I have topics out the wazoo to talk to you about. I may even bring some other folks if you don't mind, and we can have
I don't mind at all.
3 or 4 person kind of back and forth on some things, because I think you're bringing this whole different academic outlook on it, but you're also like a realistic adrenaline junkie too, which I think is this fantastic, like superhero. I think it's cool. Right? It'll be.
Well,
I mean, it's
very
weird.
I think that's a very kind way to put that combination. But yeah, I would just say that
Yeah.
this is I come at this from, yes, I understand all of the underlying fundamentals, but I'm a practitioner too. I play a lot. I mean, my guess is that we'll see. I don't know how far your reach is, but my guess is that I've given enough away there's certain people that play with me often enough that are like, my guess is some of those people watch these shows and listen to this stuff. So they'll recognize it, and that's fine. But yeah, it's, I am not just, I'm not the old man at the end of the corner playing, Dewey don't with, max don't odds on 1 point or whatever. Like that's not, that's not what I'm doing. I just,
well, and it's funny because that was my total, again, bias comes into play. That was my picture.
I don't.
And then, and you had this idea of bias where you put somebody in a box and you meet them and you talk to them, you go, okay, they stepped right out of that box. Like they completely smacked my preconceptions, which was awesome. And I think that's, I appreciate that so much.
Well, I don't know if I've made any more friends this way or not, but hopefully at least people, and honestly, okay. I'm not really, I'm okay if I didn't. It doesn't really bother me. I think that's really the essence of my personality. But I do hope that it helps frame like the way that I'm coming at this. And like the next time somebody reads one of my snarky comments, like that there's actually some altruism underlying it.
100%.
I just, I'm the kind of person that I will try and get an uninformed flat earth believer to stop believing the earth is flat. But I very quick, once I explain to them that the earth is not flat, when they continue to believe that it's flat, then I don't have any time for that anymore. And the flat earth, there's flat earth as an analogy for plenty of the people with the things they believe and don't believe as it relates to gambling. I'm happy to try and inform. I enjoy informing people. I'd love to meet other people, talk to them. I'm happy to answer questions, about whatever I can add value to. But I just kind of wanted to do this as a way to give back a little bit, because I've listened to your stuff. There's no telling how many hours of my life, content wise, I've consumed of yours. I mean, hundreds and hundreds, because I've listened to so many of these things twice. So I just thought maybe if there's some insight I can give to try and help you a little bit, I'll be happy to do it. Well, and if you have again, I'll be happy to chat about whatever.
Definitely so. And I said, I think your altruism comes through. I think that's a great thing. I think you add a lot. You added a lot. And this is like, we talked about this earlier. This is like a 10,000 foot view.
Yeah, we haven't got into the weeds. I mean, there's probably some people who are thinking that we're in the weeds, but I assure you, we're nowhere near the weeds yet.
Not close to the weeds. We're looking at the weeds. And frankly, the earth is flat, so you can see all the weeds.
Exactly. Right? You can see exactly. You can see infinite in all directions, apparently.
Infinite, yes, exactly. Watch out for the edge. Hey, man, thanks for doing this. Why don't we cut it here, and we'll do it again. We'll do it, you and me, a couple times. We have some more people to come in. I think this is going to be a good series.
Happy to, man.
And I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. You too, man.